All right, so the big mind question we're working towards in this video is, do words really do anything other than bait? Is there any point to even using words other than bait? On our way there, I want to explore specifically how bait is so baked into YouTube in specific, because I watch a lot of YouTube more than anything. I understand how YouTube works. I've spent a lot of time with YouTubers, both offline and online. Like, I've met lots of YouTubers, much bigger YouTubers than myself. I've met a lot of people who've been doing it for a very long time. I've I've been through people's operations. Like, I know how YouTube works. And bait is like core. It is core to how YouTube works. And how big you're going to get on YouTube, it really almost comes down to like, how hard are you willing to bait? Like, how big of a bait hook are you willing to cast down? Because if you want to catch the biggest audience possible, you just need the biggest, juiciest bait. And most people don't have it in them to just always chase the biggest bait. Mr. Beast has it in him. He's said himself that he is a sociopath. That's how he describes himself. He says, like, I'm just fascinated by seeing how much of an effect I can get out of other people. So he wants to see, like, what's the biggest effect I can produce through my content. Doesn't matter what the effect is. He only cares about the size of the effect. So he will always chase whatever he thinks is the biggest bait he can find. It's played out already, like, you have to have more than just the desire to create the biggest bait possible. There has to be some kind of passion, some kind of personal intrigue, some kind of ability to attach yourself to the thing. The bait has to be taken right from your own body, because this is all a self-harm addiction that capitalism gave us, but we'll talk about that another time. Eat your bait. Anthony Fantano, the internet's busiest music nerd, is one of the greatest master baiters of all time. He has found a lane where he has legitimate passion and curiosity. He has found a way that he can run his career where he simultaneously chases the biggest bait. Anything that has to do with music that's big bait, he will find a way to care enough to have something to say about it. And if he truly, truly doesn't care about an artist, because he doesn't think that it will benefit him long term really to talk about them, he will ignore them. He will completely ignore certain artists. But it all comes down to what he thinks are the long-term benefits of talking about this thing. When you look at his content, you have to think about it in terms of, like, what are the benefits to him of making this? Like, not just in the sense of, like, oh, it's a thing to talk about. It's content to make, and I have to make content. Like, why did he choose this? And lately, there's been a lot of talk about his choice to focus on sort of criticizing Kendrick Lamar for working with Playboi Carti on the basis that Kendrick has been calling out other musicians for their bad habits and bad associations while working, with someone who has bad habits and bad associations. Now, I reacted to Fantano's video on stream. I basically concluded that it was obvious bait, like too big of bait. The meme, it was too big to be called bait, too heavy, too thick, or whatever. And I knew it would work. But where I am not sure is how many people are taking the bait because they know it's bait and they are just glad that he's doing it because they're also going to get what's on the hook. Like, they're going to get to eat some of the fish. Like, Fantano's reeling in a really big fish and they're going to get to eat some of that fish, is what I mean to say. And then there are other people who seem legitimately confused about why they're riding this hook. They're like, why did he throw this hook out here? Why are we riding this hook? What's going on? Because they don't realize that they're currently eating the big fish that ultimately, this line was cast by Kendrick Lamar. It wasn't even cast by The Needle Drop. Kendrick, working with Playboi Carti, was obviously supposed to get this reaction. Kendrick is being provocative by working with Playboi Carti. There's no accident here. He didn't accidentally work with a guy who's got these associations. That would be insane to even think that, like, he didn't consider this. No. It's a deliberate move from Kendrick. He knows what it says about himself, and he knows the conversation it's going to start. Fantano said, an opportunity for me to start a big conversation. How could he most effectively open up that conversation? If he had defended Kendrick Lamar, it would have been very easy for people to just say, yeah, here's Fantano's take is correct. But by taking a stance that he knew would be controversial, like the most controversial stance he could get away with while still believing it, like, I'm not saying he doesn't believe it. I'm just saying that he could have taken any approach he wanted. But the approach he took was aggressively bait. Like, if you watch my stream reacting to the video, I point out all kinds of things, even just about what he's wearing, the way the everything is set up about it is just like, how do I make as many people talk about this as possible? And it worked. And it was interesting to see the sort of fractaling of people's takes, a huge space of hip-hop journalism that has arisen mostly around Kendrick Lamar. Or, like, most of the views are coming from Kendrick Lamar videos. And with the 1-year anniversary of Like That and the recent Playboi Carti feature from Kendrick, like, this is the opportunity to, reap all that sweet Kendrick view count again. How do you keep that going past the music? What is the conversation that you can actually milk out of, like, 2 minutes of Kendrick Lamar features on a Playboi Carti album? Like, the supposedly most mindless music that is popular. And yet there are now 10, 20, 40 hours, 50 hours of mindful discussion on YouTube about these 2 fucking minutes of Kendrick Lamar verses, mostly because of just the fact that it's Kendrick Lamar on a Playboi Carti song. Nothing really more than that. Most of Kendrick's bars, you can't even tell what the fuck he's talking about. Kendrick even goes so far in the lyrics as to tell you that you don't know who he's talking about on this song. He's baiting. He's baiting out some other rapper. We don't know who. He's got an op list just like anybody else. He's doing bait. He's baiting culture. He's baiting a specific person, maybe several specific people. It's hard to know. I'm sure Drake's done. There's nothing more to be said about Drake. There's no way this is about Drake. This is about someone else. Anthony Fantano sees Kendrick's bait and goes, I can ride this fish. I see that you are currently dragging we don't even know how big the fish is that Kendrick's trying to bait out. But he says, I see you are trying to bait out a big fish, and I'm going to help. I'm going to make the conversation last way longer than it has any right to about this song. And then everybody else jumps on that conversation out of legitimate passion. But some people know it's bait, and they're like, oh, good. I get a chance to ride the bait train. That's why they're inviting him onto podcasts, even if they disagree with him. I feel like some people are looking at it with appreciation, like, oh, I see that you've created this excellent bait situation. Let me jump on this. Even if they disagree with him, still inviting him on the podcast to talk about it because they understand the game that they're playing. And then I think that there are, like, different levels of, like, wait, how serious is he? Or wait, how serious am I? Like, wait, do I really care about this? Am I just getting heated about it because it makes for good views? And there's a magic in that confusion. And I think kind of letting yourself give into it allows you to stay passionate about this stuff, to keep one foot in and one foot out of, like, really giving a fuck. Because at the end of the day, like, Does Fantano care about whether Kendrick Lamar associates with Playboi Carti? Obviously not. Kendrick Lamar turns off the camera. Kendrick Lamar and Anthony Fantano turn off the cameras and the I got a son to raise, and I know y'all don't know nothing about that. You know, that's Kendrick Lamar's life. He goes off and he raises his son. He's not thinking about fucking who cares about that he did a Playboi Carti collaboration. He's thinking about my son's got $2 million to fucking go to college with. I think a lot of us content creators, we get ourselves very embroiled because of the fact that we care a lot, not only about the art we're talking about, but also about content creation and content creators. We're passionate about the medium of YouTube, and so we want to be a part of the conversation and to be, you know, to be in it. But for me, as somebody who's been in it and also kind of been like, oh, I don't really want to, like, I don't want my life to be determined by how good of bait I can find. I'm not a fisherman, you know, like, I'm not, I don't, but at the same time, I'm a fisherman for conversation. So, like, I actually read all my comments, you know, I respond to all my comments. I hang out in my Discord. I hang out in chats of other YouTubers. So I spend a lot of time talking to people on the internet. I can't really have children and start a family, so I've just decided the internet is my family, and I talk to everybody I find that I vibe with about anything at all, pretty much. So for me, it's like I'm taking the conversation aspect way more seriously than almost anybody else. And resultantly, I am taking the bait aspect way less seriously than anybody else. And in YouTuber association terms, that's a problem. If I'm not playing the game, I'm not bringing money in, then I am antithetical to game. You know, like, ultimately, I will not bring people into the culture who want to spend money on it, you know, because I'm not trying to bait money out of people. I'm trying to bait conversations out of people. I will improve the level of conversation of any community I appear in, but I won't make more money, and I might scare people away by raising the level of conversation, because a lot of people are afraid of that, of the bar going up and them, you know, not being able to stay above water. So, you know, not everybody has the energy to swim as hard as everybody else. I do think the water level is rising in this sense, like the quality water level is rising, but you also got to take it slow in a way where you're like teaching people how to swim gradually and not just like tossing them into, you know, a pool of infinite depth, which is what my content is like. So that's why I'm not like a forward-facing bait practitioner, but that's also why I rely so much more on people legitimately caring about me and deciding to support me so I can live, because they know that I'm not making, you know, I'm never going to make the moves that will make me a millionaire. It's just not going to happen. Like, I might make a lot of money, but I'll never probably become like, you know, a full-on millionaire, because I don't know what I'd fucking do with that much money. I literally don't know what I'd do with it, you know? I can make other people millionaires, surround myself with millionaires. It won't be me, you know? But, like, I'm okay with that. I would love to be spoiled by a bunch of millionaire friends and not have to spend any money. That actually sounds awesome to me. What I want to say to, I'm not going to say younger creators or even less experienced creators, because a lot of you have experience in those fields, but just people who haven't spent a lot of time around the higher levels, like, of the YouTube game, where you haven't like been in those spaces and met those people and realized like how cutthroat you have to be to get to that level, you know? And like, there are people in the space, in the hip-hop space, who are being incredibly kind with what they're doing. They're like the Company Man, or even more so Curtis King and Screwface John, as guys with like huge followings who do not need to decide that they're going to raise the bar of hip-hop conversation. That's just something they're doing because they want to. They just want to be able to have, Curtis King wants to be able to talk to the Company Man, you know? Screwface wants to be able to be in that call with those two guys, you know, like, so that's the motivation to literally make it so that someone like the company man can have a career, is like, yeah, I want his guidance for my career that is itself bigger, but also because of lessons I took from you and that I combined with my own talents, my own personality, you know, that is just more radiant, you know, like something that reaches more people, just like, you know, on the basis of what make something popular. They know Anthony Fantano, whether he believes what he's saying or not, and I think he does. I think he does believe it, but deciding to say it, and especially in the way he did it, and especially to keep doubling down, tripling down, never never taking a step back from the take, it is to create conversation. It is to give everyone else a bounce pad. You know, he played heel because that was the best way to get everyone else to have something to say. You know, if he said the most agreeable thing, there just wouldn't have been more conversation to be had about it. But instead, if Anthony Fantano gives everyone a reason to invite him on their podcast gets 20,000 more views than it would have. Specifically talking about Culture United, gets 20,000 more views if Fantano's on an episode than if it doesn't. That's like it's you know, 60,000 versus 80,000 is a pretty big difference in terms of how many people are getting this message and ultimately getting to see Fantano, who invited them to the party, get blown out, knowing he's going to get blown out, you know, knowing he's stepping into a situation where he's the heel. But he also knows that's going to make not just him, but everyone the most money. Everybody involved, you know, and as long as everybody played their role and knew where they stood in the situation and what they were supposed to, like, what their argument was supposed to be for the sake of their community and what they're trying to build, it benefits everyone. I just hope that all of the younger, or, you know, again, not younger, but like the creators who haven't been in the space as long, dealing with people who have made bait a part of their personality, you know, don't get too emotional about what these guys say, because they're not really totally serious. You know, like, there is some level of, I'm trying to start a conversation. In my case, like, I come, and just to make it clear why do I move the way I move, is like, I come from a background of like autistic, shut-in anime fans, and originally trying to change conversations around how like English-speaking anime fans talk about anime. That was the main like dramatic thrust of my channel, is trying to change a conversation about anime, and I was extremely effective at that. But the people that were drawn to me and to these takes and to even the idea of what I was trying to do, I found that most of them just had such a lack of social capability that I was like, if this is who is going to be following me around, I have to change myself in a way that inspires all of these people to be different, you know, like, and not necessarily to be like to fit into society better, but like, if you're going to follow me and I can't shake you, you know, we all together have to figure out, how are we gonna live together, you know, like, how are we gonna be on this internet, sharing this internet together, because I can't just like dump my following and start over in a different place. You know, I don't have another set of interests that is so outside of what all these people like, that I'm gonna like find a different set of people to like my content about the same shit. You know, like, it comes from passion. It comes from, I legitimately care about these things that I enjoy, and so that's why I want to have conversations about them. I just want the people I'm having the conversations with to be tolerable to me, you know? So I've worked a lot on making myself tolerable and showing people, here's what I kind of like expect from you behaviorally. And I think a lot of us who YouTube are kind of doing that. I think a lot of us, especially who've been on the internet for a long time, a lot of us are just aggravated with the level of conversation in the spaces that we occupy, and the more we're being driven indoors by all of the social things happening in the world, you know, beyond the literal pandemic lockdown. Like, now we're locking ourselves down out of just social fear. Like, reasonably so. But I think, you know, if we're all going to be trapped inside together, it's like, how do we make this fucking livable? Because the internet just simply cannot be nothing but an endless cycle of trolling and bait. And I think that on some level, words are always bait, because it's always you trying to get someone to be different than how they are, one way or another, right? Even if the word is just help, it's like, you are over there and you need to be over here where I am helping. Like, everything kind of comes forward from that, of like, I'm trying to make you think a certain thing, I'm trying to make you do a certain thing. I wouldn't need words if I didn't need other people to do things. Like, if I was doing everything by myself, there's no need to ever have words, even in my brain. There just would be no need for words. Words arise out of the need to make someone else change their behavior, even if it's only in terms of how they think or what they think, the structure of their thoughts, and so on and so forth. So when I make this video, I am baiting, but I'm not baiting for clicks. I'm not baiting for likes. I'm not baiting for money. I'm baiting for changing the way the conversation happens between you and I. And that's usually my main motivation. Everything else, again, it follows from that, because I do think the better I get at improving our communication, the better you will get at improving your communication with everyone else in your life. Because most people don't spend all their time thinking about how communication works. I do. So I'm the guru of the subject, and if you've come to the guru, it means A, you need help in this subject, and B, you need help from somebody who also understands the problem you're having and isn't just good at it, you know? Because people who are just good at it, they're like, what? How could you possibly not understand how to communicate? What's wrong with you? See how I've chosen my words very carefully to get like a triggering reaction out of you? Sorry about that. Trigger warning, these videos are dangerous therapy. Okay, not therapy. Therapy's not dangerous, I don't think. Just therapy. I was watching therapy stream before this, by the way. That's what inspired this.